Go put our phones away and I'll show you. What's wrong?
We came here to fix this, right?
I'm sleeping.
I think I sprained my ankle.
May I? I can fix this for you if you want.
The story begins when Brian rents a villa in Italy for a week. On their way to the property, Cassie and Brian excitedly compare the villa's features and amenities, counting down the minutes until they arrive. The place is nestled in a pristine, untouched landscape. The driver mistakenly stops at the wrong house, briefly shattering their vivid fantasies of the dream villa. But fortunately, it turns out to be just a wrong turn, and they continue on their way. When they finally arrive, both are mesmerized by the villa's beauty and eagerly explore every corner of it. The host has prepared a welcome drink for them. Eduardo, the charming owner of this dream house, encourages them to make full use of all the villa's facilities and enjoy their privacy to the fullest, hoping their stay will be truly unforgettable. He lives one town away and tells them they can contact him if they need anything. Cassie takes a shower while Brian sets up music and pours drinks. She's blissfully happy to be in such a place with her loving boyfriend. The atmosphere is peaceful, almost unreal in its calm. Cassie asks Brian to put work aside for the entire stay and focus only on enjoying their time together. Brian agrees. He goes upstairs and places both their phones in a drawer. As he does, he notices a missed call from someone named Justin, which instantly fills him with anger. He manages to keep his composure and rejoins Cassie, not wanting to ruin the night with a fight. But Brian struggles to connect with Cassie. His mind is elsewhere, preoccupied by something that keeps gnawing at him. He finally turns to her and says that the whole point of this trip was to mend what's broken between them, that they need to make an effort to let go of their differences. Brian takes 3 Viagra pills, but it's already too late. Cassie isn't in the mood anymore. His attempt falls flat, and he's left with nothing but frustration and a sleepless, painful night ahead. Unable to rest, Brian gets up when he hears a faint static noise. He follows the sound to the music player and turns it off. Eventually, he relieves his tension by flipping through one of the host's books, an erotic photo collection. What they don't know is that the entire house is under surveillance. We soon learn that Eduardo's idea of privacy involves more than 30 hidden cameras scattered throughout the villa. The next morning, Cassie finds Brian's lifeless body after his midnight excavation. She quietly prepares breakfast for him before going out for a run. As she gets farther from the villa, memories of the previous night's argument flood her mind. Lost in thought, she trips and injures herself, forcing her to move toward the nearby road for help. Meanwhile, Brian waits for her return. A car pulls over to help Cassie. She's hurt and frightened since the stranger seems a bit too curious. But Cassie can't help noticing how handsome he is. His name is Federico, and as he examines her injured leg, he offers to help her home. Cassie gratefully accepts. Back at the villa, Brian gazes at the engagement ring he brought with him. It's clear he planned to propose to Cassie during this trip. As they drive back, they pass Federico's house along the road. Cassie invites him in for coffee to thank him, but he politely declines, saying he should head home.
In Italy.
Moments later, he changes his mind and accepts her invitation, joining them for coffee. Brian hears an unfamiliar voice downstairs and comes to check. Cassie explains that Federico helped her and that he's a neighbor who lives up the hill. Federico suggests driving them to the market in the nearest town, but Brian refuses, preferring to call a taxi instead. Cassie urges him to let go of his paranoia and accept Federico's help. While Cassie showers, Brian fidgets with the engagement ring he brought with him. It's clear he planned to propose to Cassie during this trip. Still, the images of Cassie's past betrayal haunt him, clouding every attempt at intimacy. Once again, they failed to connect. Cassie feels frustrated, unaware that Federico is watching their every move through the hidden cameras, slowly realizing the tension between them. Later, the couple rides with Federico. On the road, they share how they met, through a dating app, and how their relationship began like a dream but has recently grown complicated. Federico picks up on the emotional distance between them. Brian warns Cassie about Federico, suspecting he has a crush on her and is trying to make a move. An argument follows, revealing that Cassie had once cheated on Brian while drunk. The memory still tortures him. The woman he loves betrayed him right before his eyes, and though Cassie insists it was a meaningless mistake and that she truly loves Brian, he can no longer look at her the same way. She's ignored every call from Justin since that night, wanting to put the past behind her. But Brian can't. The real reason for this trip was to fix what's been broken, but nothing seems to be going right. The distance between them keeps growing, while Federico, like a hungry wolf, circles ever closer to Cassie. He needs cash to get back home, and once again, he reappears, offering to help her withdraw money. Wherever Cassie seems to need something, Federico magically shows up, playing the part of the charming, helpful stranger.
Cassie gives him a subtle green light before heading toward the taxi. Meanwhile, Brian goes to a bar, trying to drown his thoughts in alcohol. Federico finds him there and joins him for a drink. While Cassie sits at home crying over their latest fight, Brian, drunk and broken, starts confessing everything to Federico. He tells him about that night, the Christmas party where he saw his girlfriend, drunk after a terrible argument, sleeping with one of her coworkers. Cassie has long regretted it, but the image has burned itself into Brian's mind. Every time he looks at her face, the memory replays, tormenting him. It's consumed him to the point that he can barely function. Federico introduces Brian to two of his friends, trying to pull him into conversation, but Brian isn't interested. Back at the villa, Cassie grows anxious. Brian isn't answering his phone. Unbeknownst to her, Federico and his friends have spiked Brian's drink. In his intoxicated haze, Brian confides that he has the villa's key, but it won't matter because by morning he'll remember none of this. His consciousness fades. That night, Federico goes to the villa. Cassie, having had a drink herself, has already fallen asleep. Federico caresses her. Cassie, half asleep, assumes it's Brian who's come home, but it's not. It's Federico, completely infatuated and unable to resist. The next morning, Brian wakes up in an unfamiliar room. His head throbs, his phone is missing. He staggers back to the bar to look for it, but the place is deserted. Flashes of the previous night come rushing back, and he decides to return to the villa without the phone. Cassie is upset that Brian ignored her calls, but he explains he simply lost his phone. He claims he stayed away last night to give her space, hoping to avoid more questions. While showering, he notices bruises on his body, marks from the night before. Suspicion flares. He begins to suspect Federico, realizing that the man may have planned to humiliate him. Brian questions Cassie about whether Federico was at the house last night. Cassie, hurt by Brian's constant mistrust, argues that he no longer believes a word she says. To her, Federico has been nothing but kind, while Brian seems paranoid and unstable. Frustrated, Brian cuts the conversation short and leaves the house for a walk, trying to cool off and avoid another fight. Meanwhile, Federico, the voyeur, secretly watches Cassie as she changes clothes. Brian heads toward Federico's house, determined to confront him and tell him to stay away from them. But no one seems to be there. He slips inside the house uninvited, only to find it completely empty. It's a hollow shell, abandoned. Alarmed, he rushes back to warn Cassie. When he returns, Cassie is in the kitchen, helping Federico prepare dinner.
Brian explodes, demanding to know what the hell he's doing there. Cassie explains that Federico stopped by to help cook. Federico casually mentions fragments of what happened the night before, enough to unsettle Brian, who doesn't want Cassie to suspect a thing. Brian pulls Federico aside and orders him to leave immediately, but Federico threatens him, saying he'll tell Cassie everything about what Brian did last night. Brian freezes. He can't risk Cassie finding out. He's forced to endure Federico's presence through dinner. During the meal, their polite conversation turns sharp and venomous. each man speaking in code, exchanging thinly veiled threats. Brian alludes to Federico's fake house, while Federico taunts him with cryptic remarks about the previous night. Cassie sits between them, confused and anxious, while Brian simmers in silent rage. After dinner, Brian finally snaps. He warns Federico that if he doesn't leave, he'll call the police. Federico resists, but eventually storms out of the villa. Cassie is relieved that Brian kicked him out and finally agrees Federico truly is suspicious. She insists they report him to Eduardo, the villa's owner. Back in his own quarters, Federico listens in on their conversation through hidden microphones. Brian calls Eduardo, explaining that a strange man has been lurking around the property, asking him to come check the situation. Federico watches them from afar, furious, because Brian had dared to threaten him, even though Federico could destroy him with one word. Later, Brian confesses to Cassie about the night before. He swears that nothing happened with those women, that they simply helped him get to a hotel. Federico listens closely from the surveillance room. Inside the villa, Cassie confesses that she doesn't love anyone but Brian. She wants them to forget everything, to leave the past behind, and return to the deep, passionate connection they once shared. Brian feels the same. He's trying hard to let go of what happened because, despite it all, he truly loves her. Cassie tells him to go down to the wine cellar and pick a bottle for the night. She says she'll meet him in the bedroom in 10 minutes, ready to solve their problems in bed. As Brian browses through the shelves, the cellar door suddenly slams shut, trapping him inside. Upstairs, Cassie finishes putting on her makeup and notices a handwritten note on the vanity. It says, "Put on this beautiful set, blindfold yourself, and wait for me." But Brian is still locked in the cellar. So, who wrote the note? Brian scans the walls and spots an empty space behind one of the wine racks. Meanwhile, Cassie, blindfolded and unaware, calls out softly, saying she's ready. Federico sprays himself with Brian's cologne and approaches her, making sure she suspects nothing.
Down below, Brian crawls through the dark passageways until he reaches a back room that connects to the villa. As he pushes forward, a faint sound alerts Federico. He freezes and slips out of the bedroom mid-act. Brian emerges into a side room and is met with horrifying images, live surveillance footage of Cassie. He spots his missing phone and picks it up, only to see recorded videos of himself, drunk and surrounded by strangers. Then he sees it, footage of Federico violating Cassie moments earlier. Rage consumes him. Federico has been playing them both, pitting them against each other to destroy their relationship. Cassie and Brian realize they've both been deceived. They start shouting, accusing one another, until Cassie, in fury, smashes a mirror, and behind it, they discover the hidden truth. The entire villa is wired with cameras. Federico's twisted plan is fully exposed. Panic hits him, his mask ripped away. Brian hurriedly explains everything to Cassie. They had drugged him to film him, planning to use the footage to ruin them both. They now understand that Federico orchestrated the whole thing to sabotage their relationship. Brian tries calling the police, but the line abruptly cuts off. They rush to the bedroom to use Brian's phone, but before they can, Federico appears, clutching a knife. He admits that at first he only watched them, but now he's fallen in love with Cassie. Brian pleads with him to stop before anyone gets hurt, but Federico is too far gone. A violent struggle erupts. Cassie seizes the moment, grabs a heavy cane, and strikes Federico, killing him. As the cameras capture everything, she stands frozen in shock, trembling, realizing what she's done. But Brian holds her tight, whispering that she saved them both. Then, the doorbell rings. Panic floods the room. They scramble to hide Federico's body and the weapon. Brian insists they can't open the door, but a side door creaks open. Eduardo has entered the house. He calls out for them. Brian steps forward to meet him, just in time. Eduardo explains that he received Brian's message and came to check on them, to make sure they were enjoying their stay. He insists on taking a quick tour of the house to ensure everything is in order. Brian pulls Cassie aside,
whispering that they can't let him find out. They're in a foreign country, trapped in a villa with a corpse. If Eduardo learns the truth, they'll never escape. He tells her to stay calm, that he has a plan. Eduardo makes his way to the surveillance room and stops dead. On the monitors, he sees the moment Cassie killed Federico. Now it's clear Eduardo was in on it all along. He confronts Cassie, demanding that she confess to what they've done to Federico. Before Brian can react, Eduardo draws a gun and aims it at him, threatening to kill him. At the last second, Cassie intervenes, knocking Eduardo off balance. A violent struggle erupts, killing him, as the cameras capture everything. She stands frozen in shock, trembling, realizing what she's done. But Brian holds her tight, whispering that she saved them both. At last, it's over. They clean up every trace of the crime. Brian goes to Federico's room and discovers dozens of videos of past tenants, victims just like them. Furious, he gathers all the hard drives and recordings, then sets them ablaze, watching the evidence turn to ash. After disposing of the bodies, he returns to Cassie. He tells her it's done. Every file, every trace of proof, gone. They're safe now. Finally, their nightmare ends. Their bond, once fractured, is reborn in the ashes of what they've survived. Now they know, beyond any doubt, how far they're willing to go to save each other.
Не, это все было реально.
Да невозможно.
Да вас...